Well, hello. Um, another day, another week, another newsletter, and the battle of trying to figure out what the hell to talk about is always the case. But after, there's always something that gets me going that turns into another idea or thought, and then it kind of unravels into something crazy. Even last week was that, and yeah, imperfect as it was. I just try to bring up good points, and sometimes I use other things to illustrate pieces of that. But as always, don't take everything too literal. Um, I'm more of a comedian when it comes to all this stuff in ag and ag tech and how I kind of make fun of us all, as we all should be. So I'm going to continue that trend as I always do and basically jump right in that everyone is insanely ignorant about agriculture. Um, from even myself at times, from farmers, from ag business, from outsiders, to various industry, to politicians, to government. Um, it's always been the case. Of course it is. Everyone's ignorant about something. We're all stupid about something. We all don't understand something about something. Who knew? Humans have flaws. So there, in a nutshell, there's the most obvious stated point of reality, I guess, that we all know about. So nothing new there. But here's where I'm trying to go. So let's walk back a tidbit. This week's been kind of wild in agriculture. Apparently, farmers are getting bought out from the problems of you know agriculture and government, from politics, from the giants of corporate to the poor decisions farmers make themselves, and everything in between. And of course, the dialogue looks terrible, especially for agriculture, and it's creating a lot of communication around it of, you know, hate and ignorance, to my point, problems, anger, um, uncertainty, fear, worry, all of the above. Um, Naturally, it doesn't also look very good for agriculture as a whole, who, you know, how the narrative is coming along is ag voted for this, and then ag got that, and now ag gets bailed out. And, here we are. And people will say, well, it's a rinse and repeat cycle. This happens in every administration at some point, whatever. And we can go on and on and on about the socialistic nature of agriculture or the hate around socialistic programs by many in agriculture too. It's kind of weird. There's just a lot of general hypocrisy flying all over the place, as I don't know if people just don't want to see the various nuance to it all, or if it really comes down to what I'm talking about is just blissful ignorance of how stuff works and why it got to the places it has gotten to. And I could break that down to some degree, not fully. I'm not a theologian when it comes to all that is ag, but I do get quite a bit of it and see the little things that have turned into bigger things. Um, on its head, let's look at why this tone is even there. Um, there's always been various repeatability around um, helping farmers and ag business. The money just from that goes just to the ag businesses, blah blah blah, and it's been a fairly normal narrative for quite some time. The issue is that it's not very well understood of why and how it gets there, uh, and that's where the ignorance kind of piles in. And while I won't be able to explain this perfectly, and I'm not going to send here hours on end, although I probably could, I won't. A lot of it has to come down to when things get really bad and big things change. People open their eyes and they see something like, oh crap, well, we should probably fix that or help that because it caused XYZ. Well, previous to the 80s farm crisis, which is, 30 plus years ago, uh, the protections in agriculture varied in different ways. And I really don't know the full extent of the pre 80s era because I don't know, it's not something I was taught as much. Although, I hear of the high flying 70s. That's what my grandma always said. Prices were good, everything was good, people were buying all this and that. And that's also part of the reason of the kind of the collapse in the 80s. And, the 50s were pretty good at post-war, kind of everyone coming back, just prosperity and growth. 60s, I think, were kind of, they're all over the divide, and clearly this country itself was in kind of a flux with, from going to the moon to president assassination to wars and impeachment, and all sorts of fun crap. It's like, are we just turning into the next cycle? And it's like, oh, well, that seems like, oh, are we kind of in like the 60s moment of our modern era? And then, yeah, now will come of course, after that was kind of the high flying part, but that kind of already happened. Now we're here. And I'm not trying to put correlation to that really, because that just doesn't work that way. But we do seem to repeat ourselves in history a little bit. So, trying to dive into that a little bit without not going too deep, a lot of the systems in place to help agriculture were born from the results of the 1980s farm crisis. I lived right through it. I've mentioned that. It's ingrained in my brain. The arguments, the stories, the tears, the struggle. Yeah, not easy. But I did get to feel it. Even as a kid, I did feel it. I remember it. At least from the years I can, which is, I don't know, pretty much 3 and beyond. Maybe, yeah, probably not 2, but 3. I remember things then. Not a ton, but a lot. Enough. Um, so I know that. A lot of people don't. So that's why there's a lot of questions out there. A lot of, oh, is it like this? Well, it's not. Are the protections that are out there now and the systems in place way stronger? Interest rates they're literally dropping up there. They were 18, 20%. It's like, it's insane. We're not there. But we can talk about why we are where we're at and why the ag economy is the way that as a result of the 80s and policy made after that. In the briefest of summaries, I will say, yeah, it was terrible. Ag at a bad time. A lot of people got out, a lot of good people, a lot of smart people got out, not even by the whims of their own choosing or their own decisions, just the systems did not work. And some people were better set up than others, or some people got help better than others from family or whatnot, or just had better positions. That's a whole nother thing. Because of that, it was like, oh, we got to do something. Government was like, crap, we got to do something. Politicians were like, crap, we got to do something. Even the military was like, food and ag has to look really good because we look weak if we don't. And all these things were set in place. And it was a slow bill, a lot of battles, the current farm bill, and just new provisions and things that just kind of protect. It was like protect, protect, protect. And that also protected business, protected rural America, protected this. It's like we need that. It's a core. It's foundational. It's infrastructure. And as I've mentioned before, at least in some of my other writings, that's actually what kind of birthed all the ag tech stuff, really. Because, yes, people like my father and other people in ag were like, okay, we need to use technology better to help agriculture because we lived through it and we saw it. And if we had these tools or we had something like this, that would have helped us so much. And this would have happened. And that is accurate. I'm getting there. I gotta let the dogs in, of course. And so, yeah, here we are, basically, in the current version of the progression of those protections. Of course, now it's also become more media and social media and easier ways to connect, the internet. It's just all more visual of what it is. And yeah, it's never been perfect because it can't be. There's so much nuance in ag and there's so many different ways to do it. But constantly, some opinion will rise of, oh, all farmers get this, or oh, it just goes ag business, they're getting bailed out, corporates get bailed out, blah, blah, blah. And anyways, of course, it's not as simple as that, as it can't be. But yet people want it as simple as that. And then that's where the ignorance comes in. Uh, they don't really understand why these things are the way they are. And then, a certain statement will be made of, oh, if they just did this, if they just grew this, if they just were more this. And lately I've heard, so regenerative will solve the problem. Oh, if it's organic, if we're using so many pesticides and the big companies charge farmers so much and they can kind of choose their own thing and on and on. It's just, I was like, oh, it should go more towards these people, not these people. And XYZ, it should be, more complex. Blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, the government caused this, or these people caused that, but these people didn't, but these people did, and they voted for it, so they shouldn't get this. Or, these people tried to do this, but they got lambasted and forgotten. Simply put, there's just really no simple way around it because there isn't. In its purest form, in my mind, this is my opinion, the reason why a lot of this ignorance exists, a lot of this um, kind of hype around it all, the misunderstanding of the processes within ag to the general public. Why this all exists is because we actually made ourselves a little too complacent and comfortable with our own narrative in agriculture, which naturally happened through these safety nets and support systems. It's not a bad thing to make sure the ag industry as a whole doesn't collapse. And it's a good thing to make it look good amongst other countries for trade and trust, quality, all of that. Yet, because of the kind of complacent nature of always propping it up, we've given ourselves the opportunity to always win or have the highest probability of it. Other countries are going through this, and other areas are going through this. The European Union is going through the same problem. Even dives into Canada too, and there's other countries it kind of does too. But it's like once you prop up something to almost really not fail, the people within it slowly, and it's not all, it's just it's an essence of it, stop to kind of rethink and get deeper into the real issues at hand or to the differences in their operations and how it could be this or that, or diversify into these things and that things, and then you get complacency and then stick to the same thing. Well, where that becomes problematic is there are things in this world that change. You know, weather, climate, political things, the economy and of things, war, whatnot. Those things change these bigger dynamics. And if the place where the agriculture production exists is stuck in a certain area and a realm, it becomes complacent in that because that's becomes the status quo. Then once things change, there's nothing else that can change too if the situation is large enough. Well, that is happening. And it's more happening in the core of the corn belt, soybean trade and all that. And that's creating this rift. The problem is because of the systems in place to always kind of, in a sense, guarantee this will always be a thing, it never really built itself up to think, well, this actually won't always be a thing, or this is how it can shift. Maybe we didn't have enough data, we didn't have enough understanding. We're kind of ignorant around the future. People don't like to think 10, 20, 30 years in the future necessarily. I mean, it's a giant ethanol plant right next to me and soybean crushing plant. I would bet to say they have thought it to a degree because they're like, ethanol can't last forever. I mean, yes, in some capacity, probably not as fuel. There's other things that are always building up, but if it's a gap, okay, well, that's generally fine for them because they can just turn that back into a grain elevator. Heck, they can turn into a power plant. With that, it forms more and more around people's like, well, there used to be a lot of wheat and barley and other things here. Well, it became more economical to grow soybeans, and then plants nearby. It's like, well, you should grow that. Well, then we get complacent around it. And the protections are to protect that because larger industry pushes for that, wants that, lobbying and whatnot. And then we become ignorant of what can happen if that doesn't work, or that some new technology comes around, or some new policy, or some new shift. And then we're left scratching our heads. We become ignorant to our own ways of life. And it's hard to battle that. It's hard to diversify when there is no interest in doing it. I will say, luckily here in North Dakota, we've combated this pretty well. We have other crops with other markets. We are kind of our own little federal system because we have our own state bank, and we can handle things a little differently. Other states, not so much. Southern Corn Belt right now is really in trouble. They're the ones really suffering. Not as much up here. A lot of areas in the normal Corn Belt I states, it's pockets. And a lot of that is more not with, longer, older generational farms. They're a little set up better because of their equity positions and just time. You build it up. It's really the younger farmers that were trying to basically play the big game against those established ones. And maybe they went a little too close to the sun. And the reason they did is because the complacency set in based off the feeling that we had to do these things. And more, what it really does is just kind of eats our entire concept and marketing of ag itself. And honestly, this probably can't be really avoided because there's no crystal ball that just says, well, this is going to how it's happened, so don't do this. Fortunately, some people lose situations. Sometimes they're in the wrong area, the wrong place, the wrong time. Weird things happen. That's how it happens. Now, in my mind, all of this put together is creating this giant rift, and it's a combination of a little bit of our ignorance around how we perceive ourselves in agriculture, we've been everything's been okay. Everything is taken care of. Things get paid. Protections are there. As my colleague in crop insurance has said, to make it in farming, or if in farming, you either have to be stupid or really unlucky to fail at farming. And honestly, he's kind of right. And it solves both paradigms. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, if luck is on your side or the system's on your side and you still fail, yeah, you might be kind of stupid. But unlucky things happen. Bad things happen in life. Unforeseen things happen. And so that's another way to fail. No, there's nuance around that, and tons of things like that happening. But we just kind of catch ourselves into this pattern, and it's a long pattern. Ag has these super long cycles. In essence, we might be in this, I'll call it maybe 40-year pattern of changes from big disruptions, finding ways to protect that part because of the bad things that happen, getting really comfortable with it, and everything's fine and great. And then something changes again and the cycle continues. That's kind of where we're at. And through that, the public becomes more ignorant. Us ourselves and ag become more ignorant of why we got there because we forget, or we just weren't in it. We weren't born to know that or see that or understand that. We weren't educated about it just as much as the public is not, and the normal consumer is not educated about it. And we should have to learn from that. The cycle of life continues. So it makes me think, is there a way to prevent this or mitigate this issue of just lovely ignorance in agriculture? Probably not. I would like to think it. I think some things can change there, but unless we can see some larger views on how we're actually doing ag production in this world in general, and what all the effects of that are, and actually really try to think about it, collectively, and actually come together maybe collectively in the ag industry to kind of fight for ourselves, but not in a way that's destructive for ourselves. The unfortunate reality to that is the likelihood is not everyone can win, and not everyone's going to win. And that's part of the problem that people have. This is the ignorance of ag itself. We want everyone to win. We don't want any farmers to fail. We don't want ag businesses to fail. And I get that, 100%. I don't want it either. No one really does. But for its future sustainability of it being a thing, and for it to work within this country and where things are going in the world, I might have to. Maybe there's some areas where we shouldn't farm at all. Maybe the southern corn belt, where it was not a corn and soybeans before, it was cotton and rice. And, that was done for years. So, slavery. Yeah, it's the thing, look it up. Plantations and all that, that only worked for so long. And it didn't. Then it continued into mechanization. Well, in places like India took a lot on the cotton side, and Dauber, we're going, don't worry. And other places of the world took on production, and that reduced it here. Well, then it's like, well, we gotta give them something else. Well, we gave them corn and beans with all these GMO traits and all that. And I just one chemical to spray on it, and it kills the weeds, and you're good. Yields will be great. And it did work that way until it didn't. There's more heat down there. There's more moisture, which in essence creates more costs. And then the value of everywhere else, product was going up because they were seeing success. Like up here, we didn't grow corn and soybeans up in North Dakota, but then the traits and the systems and the technology allowed us to, and then precision ag and ag tech made it more efficient. Well, in other areas, that actually made it worse. actually made it harder. And then businesses surround themselves around it. Well, now they're having troubles, and it's like, well, we gotta bail them out. We gotta get them out. They have to succeed. But are we ignorant to understand that these are the realities of why they're not succeeding down there? It's not potentially really their fault. It's not the farmer's fault there. They were kind of struck into an option. It's this or not. It's farm this way or really it doesn't work and you have to stop. Well, what's their option now? Because it's been propped up to kind of keep on going when it really was never maybe really sustainable. In the sense, not just all of Southern agriculture, corn and beans. There's pockets of this everywhere in the country where areas are like, oh, maybe we shouldn't. Like Western North Dakota, I mean, it's a high plains desert. So much ground has been opened up in the last 20 years that never should have been. It should be grassland. It's big knolls, sandy. It's highly erodible, really. Places probably just shouldn't maybe really be farmed. It's not that they can't be productive for a time. It's not that they can't produce a crop for a time. It's that it's just not really set up for that. And now that we're seeing, world populations, at least in, a lot of the trade areas we work with, are declining or pausing or really slowing down, US included. Areas that are increasing, like Africa and I think Indonesia area, those other pockets, they're ramping up. It's like, well, naturally, production will probably move there because it can. Now, maybe not as much Indonesia, but Africa, surely. I mean, yeah, it's giant. There's plenty of cropland there, but political instability and other issues cause problems. Well, those can be solved. There's more land in Brazil to be opened up. I know for a fact there's a crap ton of land in Russia that can be opened up. Now, there's other reasons why it won't or issues with that. I'm just saying, logistically, those are problems right now, but they don't have to be problems because you can help with logistics. Just look at what we've done here in the United States, what other countries have done. So why are we also propping up something? Are we too ignorant to realize that we also are probably propping up something that really can't work long term? We probably shouldn't have as many acres in production. We shouldn't be pushing as much just corn and soybeans because of that situation. Plus, the future of some of these things are not looking good in 30 years. No, maybe they can work here, but then we need to set up processes so we can switch from them to something that's more logical, that's more sustainable. But we become complacent in the processes and systems we set up so that we don't want to change them. We're not allowed to, in a sense. A lot of farmers just feel like they're not allowed to change how they do their markets. This has happened in the meat and livestock industry, especially in like hogs and poultry. They don't have a choice because they can't sell or do anything unless, one of the big guns, big four say, yeah, you can do this and it's okay. Well, then they just become subsistent farmers in a sense. They just become serfs. And that's not what it's about. Or is that actually what it can only come to? Maybe the long-term effect is only that. You look at history and that seems to always be the thing. It always seems to come to that. There's always a point where agriculture always seems to kind of get to that point. And we're getting to that point with all the baby boomers that own a shit ton of land. They're all going to die here in the next 5 to 20 years. And all that land is going to go up for sale. And right now it's really expensive. There's only so many people that can afford it. Well, a lot of big money can. Well, what does big money do? And to a point, a post that I didn't like and disagreed with the process around it, someone brought up, well, private equity will get into it. And they are. And bigger corporates and bigger businesses and insanely rich people. You can't stop it. And if we put protections in there to stop it, is that actually good too? Are we just being ignorant of our own situation? In some areas, I can probably transition as it basically has for quite a bit longer. I think here where I live in North Dakota is one of those places, but in some places of the country, it's not. All in all, there's so much more to unwrap here. I haven't even barely dipped my toe into it all. What I'm really trying to get at is we cannot be so ignorant to understand that we are not perfect and that we are kind of doing things in some stupid ways. And, well, my phone is reconnecting. I don't know what that means. Anyways, I'm getting near the end anyways. Our ignorance is causing our own problems in agriculture. And it's hurting the people we are trying to, we say we're trying to feed or fuel, because they don't get it. And then they're fighting against it, saying, well, why the hell are you doing this? Why is that going there? That's not fair. This isn't right. And us and I were like, well, this is just kind of how it works. Does it? Are we too ignorant to think that this is the only way it works? No. We're just used to it. We're just comfortable. And then when things get uncomfortable, we're like, oh, shucks. Well, I don't want that. And then other people don't want that because they're tied to this and that and power, money, and all these things. And they don't want that to change. So they're like, well, we'll fix that. And we continue, just the same answer will come up. And, as I'm getting back into farming, this is like the number one question I'm trying to answer in my head. It's like, I can't just do things the way that they're just done. If I can't think of how to keep this sustainable in whatever way, that doesn't even mean necessarily no-till and regen. It also does and doesn't. It depends. It's like, if I can't figure out how to keep this consistently evolving into the different shifts of how ag could be in this area of the world, then I probably shouldn't do it. And I should be open to shifting and changing those things. That would be the smart thing to do. And I'm not being ignorant about the reality. As one example, the area where I'll farm grows a shit ton of canola, and it grows it very well. But I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, but I can see where that will change because of a lot of things. And maybe I can focus on a crop that probably isn't going to make as much, because that will pencil out very well next year compared to some of the other crops. But if I concentrate on some of these other things that are a little hard, a little different, I can create a different narrative and create more of a thing around me of trust and brand and quality and all this. It's going to be a little tougher right away, but long term, it's a little better. I'm trying to think that way. So people in ag and all you listening, whoever is, maybe only a few of you are, you got to get in a little different realm, because this ignorance and complacency in the same cycles are killing us, and it's killing the perception of what agriculture is, which is harming the support of all of it. And it could very well get to a point in time where we don't have the choice, because we're just a bunch of serfs serving some other want and need that is out of our control, or we just lose support by the people that are buying directly from us and like, yeah, I don't like the way you're doing it. Sorry, not buying it. Oh, I don't like your product. You didn't showcase it was this. No, sorry. You did it the old way. I don't like the old way, because you didn't teach me what the way was. And now I have to look through all these other narratives, and I've decided I'm not dealing with your crap. Either way, kind of lose, right? Unless you can change that. Well, we can. Not a lot of time left. For some, there is no time left. It's over. And that might unfortunately be okay, because we probably are at our max level of production this country should actually put out, in the way it's done it, in the process that's been done for many years, in our complacent ways, through the ways that we've protected it. curious on your thoughts. We'll talk to you later.